Welcome to the AxeCast podcast. Conversations with interesting people from the world of Acadia athletics and more, talking about their lives, successes, and failures. And now let's join hosts Len Hawley and Eric Cedarberg for the next 15 to 20 minutes as they dive into the life of today's guest.
This week on our AxeCast, we are joined by a former football axeman from the class of 2011 as well as 2013, Kevin Garbuio from Fort McMurray. I guess it's Fort McMurray, isn't it? Everybody's called it Fort Mac. How you doing, Kevin?
Good. It's awesome to be here. I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, it's going to be great to sort of relive some times at Acadia and then talk about what you've been doing up north in Alberta over the past number of years. But, take us back here, 20 some years ago and the decision to come to Acadia. Where are you from and how did Acadia get on your radar?
I'm from Sudbury, Ontario, and I was playing in the OVFL, and we played against the Huronia Stallions. And that's where Coach Lambert was. So my connection to Acadia comes through getting recruited by Coach Lambert. And we had a pretty good relationship. And I was looking at Acadia and U of T. And U of T is probably one of the closest schools to Sudbury that would have football. And then things fell through, and Acadia seems like the best fit. And I decided to go to the furthest place from Sudbury, Ontario. And it was a great decision. I really enjoyed the school, and I went there without even going on a trip or anything. It just felt right.
Yeah, it's always interesting. I love hearing, recruit stories and, why did you choose a certain, especially if you're from out of the area, all of a sudden you're going, as you said, from Sudbury to a small campus in Wolfville, Nova Scotia. And now we know the connection, but, what were some of the boxes that you had to check in order to make that final decision?
Well, small class sizes is big for me. I really needed to, just the way that I learn, just a reflection now I'm a teacher, I know more about it, but I needed to be in a small classroom. I needed that connection with professors. And that's probably the only reason I got through at Acadia was because of my connections with the professors. In the history department, Dr. Parents, Dr. Dennis, Dr. Duke were three influential figures for me academically. If it wasn't for those three, and then the support of the coaches, again, Coach Lambert really helping me with my academics. I probably flame out after the first semester, but they took time and mentored me to a certain extent, and that ended up playing off huge, where my grades in my first year really picked up, and it was that choice actually ended up paying off huge.
Kevin, when you arrived, you wouldn't have started playing in the lineup right away. And you look at football today at the university level, it's nothing for, university to carry 80, 90, sometimes more guys. And maybe half of those kids are in the development stage for 2 or 3 years. Would you put yourself into that category and on how you managed to get into the lineup?
I dressed my first year, and that was something that I ended up having to start a playoff game because of, that was during remember that whole Norwalk thing in 2006? And we ended up losing our bye week, and we ended up having only 3 linebackers. So I was the one who was healthy. So I ended up getting to start a playoff game and actually have a copy of it, the Eastlake cut. That's one of my prized possessions. And I ended up having to start a game. So I went from dressing the first game, not dressing the second game, and just being on the roster, but not. I dressed, but I didn't play much. I was the backup on punt return all the way to week 8, and then I had to end up starting a game. And then we win the Loney Bowl. That was an exciting one, and I actually got to start on special teams that one, and then going to Laval was a pretty cool experience. So I had a weird year that first year just because of how it went. Unfortunately, we lost our bye week. Fortunately, I got to start a game, so that was pretty cool.
It's it's funny that you just say that and reminded me of that whole Norwalk thing. It's like, oh my gosh, that's right. I completely forgot about that. Here we are in COVID and friggin' crazy. So you end up playing here in your years, and you end up taking education here too, right?
Yeah.
What kind of got you into the idea of the frame of mind that you wanted to teach? Did you always want to teach? Was it something you always had a passion for and liked, or was it something that you were exposed to at Acadia that kind of wanted you to get into that field?
I got into coaching in the summers, just in the, I guess we moved into the OFC, the Sudbury team. So I was coaching there. And then one of the big moments was Coach Cummins. I remember in my 5th year, we were working out at the field. It was like before training camp, when the guys started arriving early. And he showed up. He's like, "Hey, we're going to a bunch of different places. Hop in the van." So I think it's like three vans of us driving. We drove to. We went to. I believe it was Avenview. We went there and we did a practice there. We went up to Horton, obviously, and then we went up to Neckek, and we were doing all these like coaching things. I thought this is really cool. How could I do this and get paid? And I was like, well, teaching's one way. So I started looking into it. So it was largely because of Coach Cummins and his involvement in the community. Valley football really played a huge part in that one.
So when you arrived at Acadia, Kevin, like, was that on your radar, or did you have something else in mind altogether?
I just wanted to play football and go to school, and they said, if you want to go to football, if you want to play football in university, you got to do something. In school, like, well, I do well in my history courses, so I took a history degree, and I was like, yeah, maybe I'll fall into something. And fortunately, I did. But it wasn't until my 5th year that I had an idea of what I was going to do. Like 5th year going into it, like training camp, I was like, yeah, maybe I'll teach. So I took a shot at it, and fortunately, I got in, and that ended up being a really good decision. Things I've been breaking my way since I decided to go to Cape.
That's Lenny. That's a dark secret among football players, is you don't really know what the hell you're doing going to university. You just want to play football. And once you get in there, you hit about your 4th year or 5th one for most of us, and you realize it's all over now. What the hell am I going to do?
I think, and you know what, Kevin, being a teacher now, and I mean, obviously, you have an impact sometimes on where kids decide to go, and helping them, guide them, and post-secondary education and what have you. But I don't know if you see this or not, but kids put a lot of pressure on themselves in order to sort of go in one direction, whether that's self-directed pressure or whether that's pressure from a family. But going to university, sometimes it's a lot about discovering yourself, and you go for one reason and you come out something totally different.
Yeah, I agree with that. A lot of it is, I always encourage people to, when they're going, make their university decision. They try and leave town, especially in Fort Mac, where we have Cannell College, which does have an auxiliary campus for the U of A. Trying to tell them, like, hey, go out of town and get that experience of maybe being on your own. And that was huge for me, being able to get some sort of independence. I'm not going to say that I'm super independent. I still rely on my parents a lot and in that regard. But being able to live on your own, being able to go to have residence, being able to make your schedule, and then experience that failure of not being able to keep your schedule, which is, I think, something everyone in their freshman year experiences. So being able to go through those failures and pick up and go, that's something that was really big for me, and something that I encourage the students in my class to go out and chase.
You mentioned the Axeman in the Loney Bowl, and when you sort of look back at your 5 years at Acadia, is there something that stands out for you just from an athletic perspective, whether it's a team thing or an individual moment for you?
That mud game in my 5th year, I think it was like the double overtime game when we beat Mount Allison in the semifinals. That was a really cool game. That was the mud bowl where leading up to that, like we didn't do very well for like 3 years. We had that year we didn't make the playoffs, and then we were sputtering around. And then that year was like, if we beat St. Mary's, we get the bye, but if we lose, we have to go to Mount Allison, and we lost the close game, 21-0 or something like that. And we end up losing. We have to go to Mount Allison. And I remember like that game, we were down 14, I think, in the second half, and we came back to win. Hit a bunch of blocked punts, and we got into overtime. And I remember that team was super beat up, and that was like a really young team. That was Kyle Gray's first year starting, I think, or his second year. And then we had, I think, a bunch of freshmen at receiver. So that was a pretty cool experience to be able to like pick up through that and win. And then seeing what happened, I graduated that year. And I remember in our year-end meeting, Coach Cummins like, sorry, great, like 5th years, like, thanks for building it up. But, like, we're gonna go on a run now. I think they lost like 3 games in 2 years after that. Like they went on that big run where I think the only game we lost to Steve was in a hurricane. So it was cool to see how that growth happened.
You've landed in Fort Mac. When you graduated Acadia, you went on. Did you not go to? You went abroad, didn't you, to teach for a short time?
No, I got a job right out of Acadia. They sent the Fort McMurray Catholic District School Board went to that job fair in Halifax, and they started that. I got in for an interview. They offered me the job soon after. I'm going to go out here, and then it turns out there's a ton of AUS people out here, so former AUS football players. So it was cool to make those connections.
So you kind of landed a job that you get to coach football. What you're looking for, the ability. How can I coach and make a living at it? But you're also, I know, following you and what you've done is not only have you led a bunch of young athletes in football, but you seem to be a leader in your community, at least when it comes around to. You're teaching special ed at a large school in Fort Mac, but you're also the football coach. And from what I understand, you have led the team and other people in mental health initiative, I guess, of better mental health. Maybe describe to us what you've done over the last, it's been over a year now. Gosh.
Yeah, in the last year or so, I noticed with football, again, university, we've the 50 years experience, but our identity is our sport, and that's not healthy. And unfortunately, we realize that later than earlier. In this case, the young guys are starting to realize this. The grade 12s are really realizing that, and our grade 11s. So we were noticing some issues, and parents reach out to me. My son's struggling, or child's struggling. So we had to figure out something to do. And there just so happened to be a government grant at the time. And we reached out for it and got a way to build up athletes' resiliency through growth mindset. So maybe using this failure. In Fort McMurray, we've had a lot of issues over the last, I've been here for 8 years. This would be my third state of emergency in the last 5 years, right? We had the fire in 2016. That was 5 years ago yesterday. Last year, we had the flood. This year, COVID, and our cases are pretty out of control right now. So going through those things, like we have adversity that we've dealt with, but what we've not done is dealt with it, right? Or used it. Like, it's one thing to say, like, oh, we went through a fire. We should be able to be tough now. But if you don't actually pull from those experiences and sit in those experiences and build upon them, it doesn't do anything. And that's what I realized. We're not learning anything from this. We're just dealing with it, and we're dealing with trauma. So how can we better use this to become as a positive? I'm not saying, like, let's use this to become better football players. Let's use this to be more healthy, because life's going to be tough. And our graduating class, again, grade 12 year, they have this COVID. Grade 11 year, they had the flood. And then grade 7 year, they had the fire. So they've dealt with a lot. So they need the skills now to use that in a positive way.
Yeah, you've seen a lot in the last 5 years in Fort Mac. Beginning with as you mentioned, the fires in 2016, and you talk about the mental health initiatives that you're involved with, Kevin, and I guess what comes to mind for me, and I guess I'm a bit privy, to being around coaches at Acadia, and always hearing about what's important, whether it's strength training, practices, and academics, obviously, and everything like that. But mental health has really surfaced in the last few years as an area that really needs a lot of attention. You've identified that. Is it safe to say that you've, even outside of these sort of state of emergencies, that this is an emerging area that coaches, leaders, teachers, what have you, really have to focus on now?
Yeah, they have to. You can't just tell people to toughen up or whatever those expressions were. We have to actually develop these skills, and we have to be able to notice the signs along the way. And I'm not saying that you have to be a therapist. I'm not a counselor either, but we have to be able to see, like, this person is struggling. How are we going to help them? Well, my best advice in that regard is to, like, get them to help. So find people who know what they're doing. I'm fortunate to be at a school that has 2 counselors. So when we have a student who's struggling, it's like, all right, they're sharing with me, they're struggling. Let's see if we can direct them to someone who can help them. So I don't have all the answers, and I'm not trained to cure them or to try and alleviate them, but I am able to find them resources. And that's what I think coaches really need to take on, the ability to use their relationships to broaden the resources for their kids. So finding counselors, finding therapists, finding even the helpline, like giving the kids the child help phone number so they can reach out. You just have to be there for them and know that, hey, I'm going to support you in this, but you don't have to be the person who cures it. You don't have to be the counselor.
And you know what? You raised an interesting question, Kevin, because you're talking about, the fact that you're not a trained counselor, and obviously, you're trying to look for things. And how do you balance being, in this case, a football coach, and wanting to challenge the kids versus, needing to put that sort of arm around them and give them the support they need?
I've definitely gotten softer since I've in the last 8 years, so where I've had taken this on, especially after the fire, where I started realizing that people are taking this differently. That's kind of what I've realized is you're able to hold people accountable without having to yell at them. You don't have to be you can challenge people just by setting their goals for them and allowing them to set their own goals and letting them work towards it. One of the things I remember we talked about at Acadia in the year that we were weak, I remember we went 1-7. Coach Cummins and Coach Lambert got us to write out our goals. And then we started to make some turnarounds, and we saw the numbers in the gym, like if you ever looked at the 1,000 pounds, like there was a substantial increase from that third year, fourth year, where people were setting goals and working towards them. And just using those skills that I picked up there and some of those little tips, like they can hold themselves accountable. You just need to support them. Like the coach doesn't need to be the authoritarian. He can be the facilitator. He can be the person who's like, hey, let's work towards this. And I found like that's worked well, like that intrinsic motivation where they're motivated from inside rather than to make coach happy. Because what ends up happening is that they're not happy, right? They have to figure out what's motivating them, why they want to do it.
So from what I've read online, and I remember seeing posted since we follow each other on Facebook, you helped organize, kind of a hosting of a mental health symposium, I guess. Was that this past fall, I think it was?
Yeah, we got the grant in the fall, and we were trying to hold off as long as we could until the cases just wouldn't go down. So we went in March, and we did it online. And that was pretty successful. That was with for parents, coaches, and athletes. So we're trying to do that scaffolding thing where we're not just going to say, here, kids, here's some stuff, but then they go to practice and their coaches are doing the old way, right? So, or they go home and their parents don't know but they know how to build it. So we wanted to help everyone, starting from kids, coaches, and parents, so they were all able to foster that. Because a lot of the times, we know what we know from what we've experienced, and this is all new to me, so I can imagine how new it is to other people. So it was a good chance to show some new approaches to coaching and to sports performance in that regard, for mental performance.
So is this with your football program or with football programs around Alberta or in your area?
We just put it on Twitch and let anyone show up who wanted to. I sent out the link. We had over 100 people show up. It was really well attended. I just sent it out, and I figured let's use this virtual world to the best of our abilities. Originally, it was going to be just our football team, that I felt probably everyone else is having the same issues, and we just sent the link out, and it was well attended for people all over Canada. We tried to get as many people to go online. I'm new to Twitch, so that was something that was a bit of a learning curve, but it was exciting, and it was well done. I think our parents had great feedback, and that was really important to make sure that they're buying into it.
Now you were named.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say you were named the top 50 people in Fort Mac under 50. Was that for this work that you did, or what was that based around? I was curious because I went to the website. I remember when it was announced and didn't come up, a description of what your work was about to get that status.
I think it was like a body of work. That was a busy year. Like 2020, 2019 was pretty busy. We started, myself and a couple other people in the community started up our local chapter of the Special Olympics. So we didn't have a Special Olympics chapter in the regional Wood Buffalo. So that includes not just Fort McMurray, that's the outlying areas. So like Fort McKay, Fort Chippewa, Anzac, Janvier. So those are the different areas that are within the region of Wood Buffalo, and we didn't have any Special Olympics. So we wanted to get some programming going. Myself and another Acadia grad, Nathan Conway, started up a weightlifting group just because we had a couple of kids who liked weightlifting. We're like, hey, let's see if you want to compete. And that's kind of where it came from. Like, trying to figure out how to get these kids to compete. There was nowhere to, so let's just build it. And that ended up working well. And then it grew pretty sizable now. They have like bowling and whatnot, but they can't. They're not able to do any sports for the time being, obviously because of COVID. But it was getting well attended as well. And then with sports in the community, I'm with the men's league team, whatever the school events are. We have the track and field team, the unified team. So I'm pretty busy around here. COVID's been tough without any of these outlets.
Well, you're a proud Acadia alumni, and that's come through in our conversation. So it's no surprise that on the door behind you we see a nice poster of Acadia. So my question for you here, football coach Garbuio, how do you remain somewhat unbiased when you're helping kids make a decision to leave high school and go to university to play football somewhere?
That's actually a really good question. With those decisions, like I just try and base on your needs. Like if you're looking for a small school with a small classroom, like, that's Acadia, right? I'll push that. But some kids are looking for different experiences. Like a kid who's looking to go to U of T or say go to school in Edmonton or Calgary, probably not the kid who's going to be successful in Wolfville, right? Like there's different needs, different interests. But whenever someone's talking about like say their department or I'm talking to parents, I know my experience at Acadia is top notch. I'll put that up against anyone else's. And if they have questions, I find the parents are impressed with when they're asking me these questions. I'm able to just email a professor, right? This wasn't even the guy I was teaching. So I think that's where I'm not telling them to go to Acadia, but this is my reality. This is my existence. But I let them make their own decisions. If they want to commit somewhere, I'm not going to say, oh, you should have gone here. That's their choice. That's their journey. My journey was at Acadia and it was enjoyable. And that's all I can share. And like when Omar was debating, like a kid from here is playing for the Florida Gators. I was telling him, like, you should probably think about playing at Acadia D-line, right?
I was looking at when he made that commitment. I'm like, did you not push him here? Like, come on. But yeah, you've had some pretty notable, like some grads coming from your program, the football program, that moved on, and that's one perfect example. I was going to jokingly say, like, you didn't get him to apply here, did you?
He was his big thing, like his coming out party, I guess, was when he was at Acadia for the Canada Cup in
oh really?
2017. Yeah, so he made the team as an underager. Like, oh, well, everyone's gonna know about this guy now. This ended up happening, but that was his big event. He's like, yeah, Acadia is a really nice place. Like, yeah, it is. You should think about it. But the others, they started calling down south, and he went down there.
And don't forget, Jerome Paython played at Acadia for a year before a great NFL career. So
I use that as a tribute question all the time whenever they show that top 10 end of the game touchdowns or whatever. They don't show the kick, but that one's always cool. I think he's one of the ones that I was talking about with them, and I think he was there 1 year in like the early 90s, right?
I think it's just the one. Just the one. Kevin, what about long-term aspirations for you? I mean, you've had great success where you are. You're only in your early to mid 30s. Do you ever aspire to coach at a higher level at some point?
I don't know. I'm always thinking about different things. Like currently I'm doing my master's right now. I'm focusing on my education because coaching, I don't know when we're going to start again, but I'm doing my master's at Acadia, obviously. So I'm doing that online, and I'm going to see where that goes. I like the idea of culture, which is something I've been really focusing on, and that's something you see it in football, but then you see it in schools and classrooms, and that's been a big driver for me. So I don't know how much longer coaching. I'll see how long I can do it. I love it, but I'm really getting into this academic portion of it. This has been it took me to my 30s to be like, I'd like to think of myself as an academic or a thinker.
I thought maybe you'd be pursuing and leaving education and get into, being a chef, cooking, because I see these great posts of food on your Facebook, and it's like my wife's Italian, and I'm like, look at what he's just made. She's like, whoa, impressive. So you're kind of like revisiting your Italian roots or something here. Was that like COVID brought that on, that, hey, I'm just going to make food from scratch?
Aside from being homesick, that was a big part of it. Like, I want to go home. I haven't seen my parents in a long time. I haven't seen my grandfather in a long time. So that's kind of a way to build that connection. And then I think I got into like the bread making thing because everyone else is doing it.
Right.
So that, and what was it? COVID happened, so all the males started trying to make bread, and I went through those failures, and that was kind of my I want to learn how to make sourdough. And, that's why they call it. It smells terrible.
Yeah,
so
bread.
I was learning.
That's not easy, eh? Bread, you can have some epic failures. I know my wife during COVID started making dough, like pizza dough. Amazing what she's done over a year, and like the dough that she produces now is unreal. But I can tell you, some of it was bad at the beginning.
Yeah. That's what there's been a lot of failures along the way. I try not to use those, when it doesn't rise or whatever. That's been kind of my little outlet right now, just trying to keep busy. I like to do a lot of stuff. I'm like not being able to coach. Like, you know what? I'll try and learn stuff. I'll learn how to cook. I'll go back to school and see what else I can get done. But that's been the big part is like homesickness and missing being home. That's an easy way to get a connection. I can email my mom or text my mom, like, Mom, what's going on? Here's where I'm at. It's not going well. And send her a picture and this is what you need to correct.
So the football, what happened this past year with you guys in Fort McMurray? Were you able to practice at all during the fall, able to play? What was
one day? We had one. It was a beautiful day. It was and then cases started picking up, and we had to move inside. We were running in a cafeteria for a bit, and you can imagine how that goes. Everyone's wondering why their times are down. So we're running in a cafeteria, but I think we got about 6 weeks, and that sucks for the grade 12s, and I do feel for them. We are sending a few players to CJFL and a few commitments, and that's nice that they get to continue their football journey, but I do feel for them, and I feel for these grade 11s right now because they're going to have no film to get based on recruiting. So we are seeing some of that start to pick up. More and more messages now from parents. How do we get our kids noticed? I don't know right now. Academics is going to be the big thing, and just making sure that they're fit.
Well, from the gridiron to the classroom and to the kitchen, you're having success everywhere, everything that you're touching, Kevin, and just good on you and everything you're doing for the community of Fort McMurray, and of course, most importantly, for the students and the athletes that are associated with you. Really appreciate you doing this, and congratulations on all you've done since Acadia.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love catching up with all this Acadia stuff. Like I still have my group chat with my buddies my roommates from Acadia, so we're always talking about just remembering things like this and training camp and whatnot. I'm hoping to get back there soon for a homecoming, especially this year being I think a 10-year reunion for my graduating class, so I'm hoping that the borders are open soon.
Well, we hope that my hope is if you can get back here in the next month or two, because we are installing a field and we may need some heavy lifting.
People didn't believe me when I said that, but we were working on that field. Like that was like I built that one, like the joke, like you built that with your bare hands. Like I did. There was like 80 of us on that field. Like that was a that was a tough week.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the pictures because I remember taking pictures of you guys carting out wheelbarrows full of that black, the black plastic and the fill for the field. J Rod and some other guys are hauling this stuff out. It's like I got to find these pictures because nobody believes that we had our football team help install the remaining parts of the field at the end. So
that was a big deal. Like I remember when that field got put in, that was like a huge deal. Yeah, I was so excited to be a part of that. I remember, I think it was Matt Kasner and I were talking. I just want to do this so I can save Bill with my bare hands. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do too. And that was a cool experience. And that's something that I think we went 3-5 that year, and I think that's the thing I remember the most from that season was us building together.
We had our season opener at St. Mary's.
Yeah, that was a good game too. We won that one against Mount Ellis.
Did, yeah. Anyway.
Well, appreciate you doing this, Kevin. Thanks again, and hopefully we'll see you on campus sooner than later.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully at least at my convocation. I think next year if I take it from home